This is a calculator fully displaying and controlling Minecraft. But how did I set this up? I found this code online that turns this calculator into an external monitor and controller for my computer. So for the next 100 days, I'm going to be playing Minecraft on my calculator. Also, I'm using a mouse because I need that to look around and stuff. On my first day, I started off by chopping down a tree, then spent the next minute trying to figure out which button opens up the crafting menu. Eventually, I'll get used to playing on this calculator, but for now, I struggle. After finding the button, I crafted my basic tools, then found chicken and sheep I really liked, so I killed them for resources. And I was actually hoping to find a village on my first day, but would you look at that, there's a shipwreck. Playing on a calculator isn't an easy task, so I set my spawn point underwater in case I died. And this isn't hardcore for a reason. The next day I ended up finding a shipwreck, which I looted without dying this time. Look at me go. Right next to the shipwreck was a savanna biome, and in it I killed a bunch of pigs for food. Then I finally managed to find a village, and it was huge. That's what she said. Once I reached the village, I terrorized the villager and claimed his house as my own, and after that, I realized I still had wooden tools, so I finally crafted myself better tools, then I killed the iron golem. Day 3 I was hungry, so I tried smelting my food, only to realize I had no coal. So I searched for a cave, and on the way I found exposed coal and iron ores. I grabbed them, then I did find the cave, so I crafted a shield for safety measures, and in the cave I found plenty of iron, but what I also found plenty of was hostile mobs. I also managed to find not 1, but 2 diamonds. And on my way out of the cave I found an enderman and got an ender pearl. However, on day 4 I was quickly swarmed by hostile mobs, so I decided to box myself in to be protected, but instead I ended up being boxed in with the hostile mobs. Luckily I was able to collect all my items, and when I got out of the cave I smelted the iron I collected. Using all that iron I crafted myself half iron armor, and as I was turning nighttime I got attacked by a drowned, so I killed it and it dropped his trident first try. Keep in mind this is the first drowned I've killed this whole series, so out of excitement I went to sleep. The next day I found a ruin portal that was completable, so I spent the next minute trying to break the crying obsidian. Then I fixed the portal only to be spawned in a basalt biome. I hate this place. Playing in a calculator is already hard enough task, so navigating this terrain was a pain because as soon as I did, I fell in lava and I died. Luckily I had my spawn point set, so I went back to get my items, and on day 6 I wanted to find a pale garden biome as the new update had just dropped, so I spent the whole day looking for one, but to no luck. Eventually I found a dark oak forest, which meant there could be one nearby. Once I reached the garden, I committed mass deforestation and gathered saplings to take back home, and eventually it turned nighttime, and I was excited for a creeking to spawn, but none did, so I spent the night fighting hostile mobs instead. When it finally became morning, I looked for a village as I was lost, but ended up finding a pillager outpost. The chests in it barely had any loot, but I did get an ominous bottle from killing a pillager, which would be useful later on. The rest of the day, however, was unproductive, but on day 9, I finally managed to find a village. There, I restocked my gear and killed the iron golem for an iron pickaxe since I yearned for the mines. And in the mines, I found plenty of diamonds. Using those diamonds, I decided to make a diamond pickaxe to get obsidian from a nearby portal to then make an enchanting table. Using it, I enchanted all of my armor and tools, and then I found a lava pool, so I built another portal and went to the Nether. There, I found 4 endermen that dropped 3 ender pearls, then I made it back to the overworld. On day 13, I stored all my valuables in a chest and decided to go mining as I wanted to get full diamond armor. So once again, I was in the mines. This time, accompanied by my dog that I got on day 11. Together, we collected plenty of diamonds. This dog has no name yet, however. I sure do hope nothing happens to it. As it turned nighttime, I encountered multiple near-death experiences, including this one where 5 baby zombies pulled up on me at once. Do they think I'm Filza? Because of these mobs, my armor ended up breaking, so using all the diamonds I got, I crafted a set of full diamond armor and tools. Then I enchanted it all. However, it was already day 17, so I decided I wanted to build an iron farm, and here's everything that went wrong in the process. I thought I had 3 villagers for the farm, but one of them was a baby, so it died with a zombie, and while building the farm, my dog somehow teleported to it and burned in lava. Rest in peace, I never even named you. Since my villager died, I had to get another one, only for it to die to the zombie, and then I had to find another villager, and when I found one, my farm somehow breaks, so now I'll have to fix it and transport another villager to the farm. But the entire process went like this. What am I doing wrong? Where are you going? Come on, it's turning nighttime. I know what to do. Yes, I'm so smart, man. It's gonna work. There's a fucking... And finally, the farm worked on day 22. This took 5 days.
I'm done, bro.
Since my dog died, I wanted to find a replacement, so I spent an hour looking for a new one, but I couldn't find any. However, there were plenty of armadillos, which gave me the idea of making dog armor, as it would help me protect my dog. So I found an armadillo and kidnapped it all the way to my village, where I had no idea how to get scoots to make armor. I thought killing or shearing the armadillo would do it, but it was later revealed to me by the voices in my head that I needed to use a brush on the armadillo. So I did. Then I painted it purple, as that's my favorite color. But now I needed to get a wolf to put the armor on. So I spent the next few days looking for wolves, and by day 26 I finally managed to find some, and I was able to tame 2 of them. But by the time I was back at my village, I realized I had lost them somewhere, so I had no pets anymore. By now it was day 30 and I decided to finally conquer the Nether, and since the Nether spawn at my village sucks, I decided to go far enough that I'd get a different spawn. Eventually I found a row portal that had a looting 2 sword, and that was also fixable. So I went to the Nether where I got a Soul Sand Valley spawn, and right under my portal was a fortress. However, getting to the fortress was no easy task, and neither was killing the blazes as I'm controlling the game from my calculator. However, offhanding my looting sword made blaze drops much more convenient, so eventually I got more than enough blaze drops and made my way back home on day 32. That's when I realized I barely had a stable food source, so I built a cow crusher, but of course the cows didn't want to be crushed. Eventually I got it working by day 33, where I knew I needed a wheat farm to keep the cow crusher in business, so I got to planting wheat, and now I've got infinite food in this world. The next day I started the day by feeding the cows in the cow crusher. Then I checked my armor and realized it was on the verge of breaking. That's when I got the idea to start villager trading to get some better gear. However, all the villagers in my village were non-existent, so I decided to use the ones in my iron farm instead. Now for the next few days I'll max out my villagers until I can get diamond armor. So I started by chopping down the trees in my village to get sticks to trade with my villagers. However, I'm also trying to build the calculator as a base to honor this challenge, so I laid the outline for it and realized this is gonna be massive. That's when I set a house on fire and watched it slowly burn. Then I took it apart and cleared out the rest of the area. I then burnt my house down and took it apart as well, then kicked myself out of my own home. And now that I was homeless, I took a break to feed the cows in the cow crusher, which finally started producing food. And the cow's final wishes before it died was for you to hit the like and subscribe button, so don't let the cow's wishes go to vain. As it was turning day 40, I started working on the frame for the bottom half of the base. However, I realized that the frame wasn't symmetrical, so I had to rebuild it multiple times, and by the time I finally got it right, it was day 41. Now for the base itself, I had 2 options to build it from: concrete and wool. I could either build a concrete duper and have infinite concrete to build with, or I can use wool, which is burnable but easy to get. I chose wool as I'm lazy. So since I needed a lot of black wool to build my calculator base, I started by gathering the materials to make a string duper. But after a whole day of trying to make the string duper work, it turns out they got patched in this version of the game. So I switched to plan B, which is breeding and shearing sheep for their wool. I gathered up some sheep and built a small farm where I let the sheep get freaky. It's slower than a string duper, but at least it saves on black ink. So I started by turning all my sheep black, then breeding them to expand my wool supply. After that, I expanded the sheep farm so I can get even more wool for my base. On day 45, I took down the string duper since it got patched in this version, and instead decided to build a tripwire farm since it would help me get emeralds. So I spent most of the day gathering materials and built the farm, and by the time I was done with it, it was already day 46. That's when I tested the farm and realized just how overpowered it is. So I got straight into trading to max out my villager until it turned nighttime. The next day I realized just how bad my storage is, so I decided to fix it. Instead of carrying everything around, I set up chests around each farm to keep things organized. Once that was sorted, I focused on maxing out my villager, and after a lot of trading, I finally managed to upgrade my villager to the next level. Next, I spent the rest of the day breeding and shearing as many sheep as I could so I can get wool to build my calculator base. So for the next few days, my routine was breed sheep, chop trees, shear sheep, plant trees, villager trade. Breed sheep, chop trees, shear sheep, breed sheep, chop trees, shear sheep, chop trees, shear sheep, chop trees. And once I finally upgraded my villager to the max, I didn't get a tripwire trade, so I flipped off my villager and went to sleep. It was now day 50, and since my old fetcher decided to scam me, I decided to recruit a new one. So most of the day was spent deforesting my village and trading with a new villager. At the same time, I had to take care of my multiple farms in the village, like replanting the wheat farm and shearing my sheep. And at this point, the sheep farm was so big that by the time I finished shearing them, they'd regrow their wool. So by the end of one day, I'd have 3 stacks minimum. By day 52, I finally maxed out my villager, and this time I got the tripwire trade, so I spent the day farming tripwire. Now at this point, I had enough wool to start building my base, so for the next 10 days I built my calculator. For the exterior of the calculator I used black wool, and for the buttons I used netherrack, even though I was planning on using quartz block. And for the interior, well, we'll worry about that another time. This build was so high that one fall would kill me while building it, and from far away it was very noticeable. It was now day 71 and I spent the last 20 days working on this. However, there is no time to admire my work as I need to prepare for the end fight. So I went to a nearby village to kidnap new underpaid workers since my village was a wasteland. After kidnapping 3 villagers, they wandered aimlessly until I locked them in my base. But one had mysteriously disappeared, and when I tried breeding the other 2, one decided to straight up kill himself. So by day 75, I was left with 1 villager. However, I locked in and traded with my villagers so I can max out my armor to get armor to fight the ender dragon. And by day 79, I was fully stacked and ready to go to the end. Today I'm killing the Ender Dragon. I threw my first Eye of Ender and luckily the stronghold was closed. In the stronghold I found Ender pearls and discovered that the portal had already had 2 eyes filled, but I was 3 eyes short. So I headed to the Nether where I killed 1 Enderman and traded it with piglins for 2 more. Then I returned to the stronghold on day 82 and filled in the Eyes of Ender, then jumped into the end. Once I was in the end I started shooting down the towers, and once I took out all the towers and the dragon perched I started hitting it. It left and came back, and when it did I bedded it. Then I did the same thing again. However, when it landed for the final perch I hit it enough to finish that job. And just like that, I became the first person to beat Minecraft using a calculator.
Oh my god! I'm so good at it.
Oh, we're not done yet, by the way. I have to go to the end city now, as I'm only on day 83 out of 100. So I headed to an end gateway to get an elytra. That's when I spent all day looking for an engine. Eventually, I started bridging across the void, and through a really risky pearl that could have ended the run. Do you see how close I am? But it led me to an end ship where shulkers made it a nightmare since I'm playing on a calculator. Luckily by day 84 I was able to loot the end city and finally acquired an elytra. So I took an end gateway home and now I just have to figure out how to fly on a calculator. It was now day 85 and I got stacked up to beat the wither. So I gathered my best loot to head to the nether. On the way I finally learned how to fly on a calculator, but when I tried getting gunpowder to make fireworks, creepers wouldn't drop any, even though I was using looting too. So I just headed to the nether and flew to the fortress. Once in the fortress I started killing wither skeletons until I finally had 3 wither skulls, and this was a very long process and I almost died during it. But once I finally got the 3rd skull I headed back to my nether portal and made it to the overworld. Once I was home I went into a cave to spawn the wither.
What the hell?
Okay, let me try that again.
Oh, no.
Once I was home I went into a cave to spawn the wither.
Oh shit. Oh, I'm so dead.
Oh, I have to do it with my sword now. No! When I respawned, the wither had made its way out of the cave and started raining havoc all over my village. All my gear was destroyed, all my mobs were being killed, the wither was back at full health, everything that could have went wrong, went wrong. Eventually the wither was far enough from my village and there was no point in trying to fight it now. I was hopeless. Yeah, it was good.
How you feel, huh? Yeah, me too. Okay, at least it's not my village anymore. Let's look at the damage. Oh, okay. No more sheep farm. What do I do now? Beacon! Yeah, once I kill the wither, I was gonna make a beacon. But there's no beacon to make anymore.
Then I remember what Nikkei30 once said. Never back down, never what? Never give up. It was day 88 and I still had 12 more days till the challenge was over. So I headed to my tripwire duper to get geared up and I was already back at diamond armor. Since all my mobs died, I took my pet armadillo into my house so I can feel like I wasn't lonely in this world. It was now day 90, so I decided to start a raid as that was my final goal for these 100 days. So I drank an ominous potion I previously collected and started a raid. The raid was actually pretty simple and by day 91 I had Hero of the Village. And now that I was done with that, I decided to clean up the mess that the wither made in my village. I started by patching up the holes in the ground. Then with all the wither roses I collected, I made a memorial site for all the dead mobs. After that, I fixed the fence to my old sheep farm. To make the village seem less dead, I decided to remove any destroyed houses and then decided to tame a horse to have more livestock. With my horse, I tried kidnapping a villager from a nearby village, but it ended up pissing me off, so I killed it and returned to my village on day 95. The village, however, still seemed dead, so I decided to revive the sheep farm. After finding 2 black sheep that escaped the wither's reign of terror, I bred them and started expanding the sheep farm again. I also wanted to build a chicken farm, so I gathered materials for it. Then found chickens and trapped them. Once the chicken farm was built, I kidnapped the chickens and forced them to reproduce. Now, once they grow, I'll have food and feathers. As we were nearing day 100, I planted trees all over my village to make it seem more lively. Then I continued breeding my mobs so this place can feel more alive. We had reached day 99 and I decided to finally name my pets. I called my armadillo a calcadillo and then called my horse an Uber because I thought that was funny. Then I spent the rest of the day admiring my village and being sentimental as the challenge was nearing its end. So I bred my chicken and sheep one last time, and as the sun was setting, it was time to go to sleep, as I had finally finished surviving 100 days of Minecraft on a calculator. Please like and subscribe, please.